The next topic is expanding the OSDU data platform into the mining domain. And this is something that's really quite exciting. We're going to have an intro from my colleague Dennis Stevens, and then we'll have our main presentation from one of the champions in the membership for this activity. So to introduce our speakers, Dennis Stevens is the program director for the Open Group OSDU Forum and the consortium director for the Open Group Energistics Consortium. He has over 38 years of electrical engineering, management, and business development experience. The OSDU Forum, which is made up of over 210 major energy organizations with 2,400 registered participants, is creating an open source software platform and associated standards for use by the energy industry. And the objective of the OSDU Data Platform is to harmonize and optimize the compute infrastructure for both subsurface and renewable energy data. So Dennis will go up first, and then he will hand over to Francisca Maepa, who is a principal of geoscience data in the exploration, excellence, and innovation part of BHP, working on implementing the OSDU data vision in the mining industry. Francisca and her team are working on creating a single source of truth for geoscience data. Her background includes applications of data science and machine learning for mineral exploration targeting in magmatic and hydrothermal mineral systems. So a warm welcome, please, for Dennis Stevens and Francisca Maepa. Over to you. Dennis, I think you're first.
Thank you, Steve. Can you see the slides okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, very good. Well, welcome everyone to our webinar this afternoon. We're going to talk about the OSDU Data Platform. Quick introduction, as Steve said, and then we're going to show how it applies to a different domain, the mining domain. And that is an exciting growth area for OSDU. So to give you a general idea of what is the OSDU Forum, I think first of all is what do the letters OSDU stand for? And that is Open Subsurface Data Universe. We no longer use the spelled out version of that because early on, when we were developing not only the open source software, but the standards associated, it became very apparent that this data platform is applicable to the new energy areas of photovoltaic, geothermal, hydrogen, and wind turbines. And so we kept the OSDU moniker, but we no longer call it the Open Subsurface Data Universe because of its applicability. Now, the OSDU Forum is an industry consortium of the Open Group of basically the who's who of the energy industry, from the energy suppliers through the ISVs, through the service companies and application developers. And I think what's key here is where the Open Group, if you're not a member and you're joining us in this webinar, trying to get a good understanding of the Open Group and some of the forums and consortia, well, one of the key activities and philosophies of the Open Group is to listen and provide a forum for a collaboration of those that have requirements. In this case, we call them the operators. They have specific needs, specific requirements. And to give emphasis to that requirements collection. And Eva, your post about Einstein caught my eye, and I couldn't agree more. I don't know if I agree with 98.3% of the time. Being spent on requirements development and 1.7% devoted to the solution. Probably back that off a little bit, but in OSDU, we actually do care very much about those requirements, and because those are the folks that are consuming the fruits of the rest of the community. And we give that opportunity for the operators to voice their requirements, but we give an equal opportunity to the supply side of the ecosystem to respond to those requirements. So for example, an operator could say, I need this, and that requirement, and the supply community said, that's great idea, but technically you're asking us to divide by 0, and it's an intractable solution, can't work. The forum gives that opportunity for that bilateral discussion and to be able to walk in each other's shoes and really understand the problems at hand and the solutions that go with it and come up with it. In the same sense, we focus on the business aspects. And so the operators have a need to run their business efficiently and deliver product at a profit. And we look at those business requirements as well from the perspective of giving the supply side of the community to say, those business requirements are great, maybe things like interoperability, portability, but if you take it to the nth degree, you're going to put us out of business. We can't be competitive. And so there's a balance there, and that's the beauty of the OSDU forum and the other forums of the Open Group. The OSDU Forum is comprised today of over 2,500 participants and roughly about 203 member organizations, composing of international operating companies, nationalized operating companies, services integrators and software companies, academia and consulting firms, and we're moving into regulatory and compliance. We have a new working group in that area. We also have a philosophy in the Open Group is don't reinvent the wheel. So we go out of our way to form what we call memorandums of understanding and liaison agreements with other standards bodies. And so PPDM, for example, has a reference value list that they publish. We work very closely with them in an interactive basis under the legal framework of a liaison so that their reference values are harmonized with ours, and we're aligned, and neither of us are reinventing the wheel, so to speak. Energistics was mentioned earlier, some of their standards, such as units of measure. We also use WITSML for wells, ProdML for production, ResQML for reservoirs in the OSDU Data Platform. SEG, we use a lot of their standards for our seismic. Blockchain for energy is an emerging area for the use of blockchain technologies for moving mass amounts of data in a controlled manner with the proper credentials assigned to that. GMG, Global Mining Guidelines Group, just joined us, and we look forward to working with them to support the mining community. But we are, as I said earlier, a who's who of the energy ecosystem. And on this slide, you can see a snapshot of many of the various components, stakeholders of that ecosystem. Now, we're organized in the OSDU Forum under the Open Group Legal and Operating Framework. In essence, that means we put in the proper controls to ensure that we're aligned with a pro-competitive environment, that we never violate any of the antitrust laws. We do that through a very process-oriented method that we exercise at every meeting. We also offer, through our processes, procedures, and test tools in the open source software, a way of ensuring that members are not exposed to any intellectual property that would be restrictive or confidential, and therefore putting an encumbrance on them. The remainder of the OSDU Forum is composed of the focal points. I said 203 member organizations. Each one of them has a selected focal point. They are the strategic decision makers. They vote on elections. They vote on publications. The OMC, the OSDU Management Committee, think of them as a tactical decision-making group consisting of 11 members. 5 of them are operators, 3 of them are CSPs, cloud service providers, and 3 of them are the supply community, making up 11 members. To the left is the Project Management Committee and all of the capability groups that go into creating the open source software that executes what we call the OSDU Data Platform. On the right-hand side is the more traditional standards body working groups, where we delve into the discussions, for example, in data definitions of What is the correct formatting and units of measure for seismic, for well delivery, for petrophysics, for renewables, for reservoirs? And those groups work in the more traditional standards approach. Now, the problems that led to the development of the OSDU Forum, frankly, are pretty common across industry. They were focused on here in the energy, but you had silos of information on different systems, and most important to this discussion is they were in proprietary formats, and they were application centric. I give you an example of that. It would be like if in order to get your, if you're in the US doing income tax and you wanted your W-2 or your investment earnings, you'd have to go buy TurboTax to get access to that data. And so you're locked, you're locked in there. Well, that's not the case with TurboTax. Clearly, in that example, your income data is separated from the application TurboTax, which is separated from the operating environment that it sits in. Think of that analogy of what we're creating in OSDU, that separation with very, very specific standardized interfaces, what we call abstraction of those interfaces. Other problems were intercompany communicating, not, from, if you're a large company, you may have a different system in one division than in another division. So to be able to move data back and forth, massive amounts of data like seismic or reservoir or other subsurface data was very difficult. We're harmonizing that. If you're in a joint venture with other companies, the ability to share that data was advanced in the OSDU Data Platform as well. So interoperability, standardization, we're all addressing those problems. And then labor costs, the ability to find that specific target, where to put your well to capture those resources. That formerly took a lot of time, a lot of searching various databases. We're harmonizing that in our data platform, making that much easier, reducing that labor cost, and so that the OpEx and CapEx associated with running a business is reduced. So again, getting back to what I was saying before about the business, we focus on process workflows that are needed by the energy companies, but buffered and tailored by what is the art of the possible. So one of those areas is common terminology. The term well can mean different things in different organizations of the same company. It can mean something different to mining. They use the term drill hole. So we are harmonizing that terminology. We are doing that by looking at the primary and secondary inputs and outputs of a given workflow area, putting that in a working group, boiling that down, and ultimately coming up with the specific requirements that are needed to support the prioritization and business decision making. The forum is delivering two major items: the data platform, which is open source software. Anyone can download that. It's available to the world. The members are focused on building that. And the key factors that are in that open source software are the ability to ingest data, index it, search it, and visualize it. And we use the development methodology is an agile development approach, and we are publishing that open source software. And it can today run on Google, IBM, Microsoft, and Amazon cloud services. It's also available to run on premise if you have that capability. And the standards and business processes go hand in hand with that software. The standards, the architectural constructs, APIs, data models, and schemas, they're all being published or will be published, along with certification policies for the certification of applications or the data platform and training modules. So the platform at a snapshot takes source data, separates it from the application data, allows very specific storage modalities based on the type of data it is, goes into and it creates a set of metadata that can be searched and ultimately exported through the use of other applications and then consumed by the geoscientists to locate and add value to the data that is presented there. Where we're also moving is regulatory and compliance, where governmental entities with the proper authority can work with the end user to get access to regulatory reporting information. So we break down the boundaries. Up on the top is in the application space. That's buffered by a set of APIs and generic data models or standardized data models from the core software in the center. That's buffered from the application and infrastructure providers, the cloud service providers, which are down on the bottom, through a layered architecture that allows an application, which is written up on the very top, written once to one SKU, to run on any one of the cloud service providers through the use of those standardized APIs and domain models. An emerging activity is the community implementation, the green box on the lower right-hand side, where we are standardizing all those interfaces and allowing the cloud service providers to utilize that infrastructure definitions and or on-premise to utilize those for a more robust and efficient development environment. And what we mean by that is we started back in 2018 on a single source of software. Then we engaged with the 4 cloud service providers, and they created 4 variants of that OSDU data platform, and that's served us very, very well over the past 3 years. And now we're moving to what we call the Venus release, where we are focusing on that community implementation that I just showed on the previous page, where we will then build all implementations to that singular set of software called Venus, and then there'll be milestone releases on top of that. So with that, now I'm going to turn it over to Francisca, and Francisca will take us through the mining challenges and applications of the OSDU data platform. Francisca?
Thanks, Dennis. Hi, everyone. My name is Francisca, and I work for BHP, working on the OSDU data platform. One of the key challenges that we have in the mining industry, very similar to energy, is how data sits in our repositories. Most of our data is in silos with different teams working in different parts of the world. Our main goal is to ensure that we can put data in a centralized data platform, such as OSDU. And additionally, building standards for that data set so that we have a single source of truth for geoscience data, for data sets across the mining value chain, from drilling and sampling to geophysics, airborne geophysical data sets. Additionally, one of the main challenges is interoperability between data platform and software. The main goal is to make it easy for geoscientists to be able to connect to data platforms and access data for their geoscience needs, and to help them make better, faster decisions in mining and exploration. And another key challenge in data is data lineages. So kind of understanding primary data and how primary data connects to secondary and derived data sets, to be able to see the chain of decisions made on particular data sets. This helps us improve uncertainty related to data, recognize who worked on specific data sets, and how different teams can leverage the same information built by one subject matter expert. So essentially, working on the OSDU data platform gives us an opportunity to potentially address some of these data challenges, reducing silos, building standards, improving interoperability, and highlighting data lineages in mining. Next slide, please. The reason why OSDU data platform is such a good solution in the mining and energy industry is the ability to fast track decision making in exploration. So first, we want to make sure that we have high data integrity. And the only way to recognize that is by building out standards that can be acceptable across the mining value chain by different institutions and globally as well. So building that data integrity, a single source of truth for geoscience data, and putting that data in a cloud-based repository where different teams can access it, and integrate it in their systems when it comes to exploration activities. This enables us also to leverage the powers of AI and machine learning workflows. So essentially, when your data is well standardized and it's sitting in one location, you have higher trust in your data, which means you the biggest challenge now is understanding the AI and advanced analytical tools that you use to derive value and information from data. So we are essentially solving the data analytical problem and helping us automate workflows and processes as well. So when your data is standardized well, you're able to build better AI workflows and machine learning workflows, and can better automate those workflows. That frees up time from our geoscientists to tackle other challenges within the industry. This helps us make better decisions at regional exploration sites, as well as we zone down to the target scale as well. Our exploration geoscientists are looking at big belts and scales when it comes to mineral systems, and we want to ensure that our data can keep pace with the way that we're making exploration related decisions. And also, furthermore, we want to ensure that with high data integrity, we can trust the targets that we establish for drilling and more detailed exploration at deposit sites. So this is essentially our future when it comes to exploration and targeting. We want to ensure that our data is trusted, and looking at data is our most valuable commodity because it is. Next slide, please. Yeah, and we achieve this by essentially thinking about what is our most ideal data platform within any industry, essentially, but this is more so to cater towards mining and exploration. Within the mining industry, we have data coming from external sources as well as internal sources. Our geoscientists go into the field, collect data. This is primary and secondary data sets, and all these data go into our data platforms, such as our data platforms, and essentially and the process includes data quality assurance, QA/QC. Our data management teams review that data set, make sure that it's plotting in the right location, the data is captured properly, and the data is standardized across the different data types that we have. And so we're looking at four components of data management, which is data sourcing, data ingestion into the OSDU Data Platform, which is our governed domain. This is a centralized environment whereby data is to be standardized. So all data that you find in that environment, regardless of where it plots in the world, it would be standardized and represent a source of truth for what that geoscience data is supposed to be. And additionally, I talked about interoperability with the OSDU Data Platform. So ideally, governed domain would contain standardized data, but also our governed domain will be able to plug and connect to a lot of other software that exists within the mining industry. So software that helps us plot data in 2D and 3D, software that helps us leverage the power of AI and machine learning to derive new insights. So in the working domain there, what we're working on within BHP for OSDU is building data discovery tools that connect to the governed domain, which is the OSDU Data Platform. And in the data discovery tool, our geoscientists will be able to zoom into specific locations and find data of all types, and essentially integrate it for deriving value. So when we get that standardized raw primary geoscience data sets, our geoscientists and subject matter experts would analyze it, synthesize the data, and come up with derived products and interpretations that are going to help with making those key decisions. The beauty of the OSDU Data Platform and the schematic is that what we want to do is enable data to not only be analyzed from the governed domain, but to also go back into the governed domain as derived product, so that we can keep track of historical analytics that are done on data, and keep track of who did the analysis, why they did the analysis, what primary data was used to do those analysis, and also capture documentation that is written associated with those analysis. And this is where OSDU comes in, because you have the ability to capture documentation, to standardize geoscience data, build interoperability, and also build the lineages. So that was the beauty of OSDU for us, is it's the ability to have all of these different challenges related to data solved within one single data repository. Next slide, please. And this can be done through collaboration. So any company can build a data platform and essentially connect to different softwares around that data platform. But it's much more the beauty of OSDU is the collaborative nature of having different companies and institutions, whether this is research, universities, governmental surveys, and software vendors coming together in one room and essentially establishing what the standard looks like for a particular data type. So our data vision for OSDU is essentially having all the different institutions that use and integrate geoscience mining data sets in the same room, and all basically deciding on what a standard looks like. And this led to the establishment of the OSDU Mining Working Group, which I'll talk about a lot in the next couple of slides. But essentially, when we became members of the OSDU Forum, BHP, the main goal was to understand how the forum works, understand the collaborative nature of the OSDU Forum, but also to see how we can take it a bit further and not work as a silo, get other mining companies, research institutions, and universities to sit in one room and understand how we will be able to build out the data ecosystem. So the Mining Special Interest Group was built, was established within the forum to achieve that, have everybody in the room sit down and discuss data definitions, standard schemas, and metadata, and see how that kind of comes together within the OSD data infrastructure. So ideally, we would have representatives from each and every one of those circles: junior mining companies to research universities, consultants, and governmental surveys, all coming together, working with the petroleum industry and the work that the petroleum industry has done so far within the OSDU Data Platform. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this slide is reiterating what I've essentially been saying. We want to build globally adoptable data standards and an infrastructure that puts data at the center for mining. If you think about it, right today, what we have is that geoscience data is very much attached to specific applications and application format, right? So the main goal of OSDU is to make data at the center of application, which essentially means that we put data, we see data as one of our strongest commodity, and how can we have vendor agnostic data standards and definitions for geoscience data in mining and in mineral exploration. So having all the different vendors that exist within the mining community plug into the OSDU data platform and ensure that users are able to leverage the standards that have been established by subject matter expertise. And additionally, one thing we want to do is also create a community for collaboration between mining and energy operators, vendors, and cloud service providers. Collaboration is a big key in today's time. We want everybody to have a say on how data should look like, and also this type of collaboration goes across companies and continents and workflows as well. So you essentially have different people representing different countries and companies coming together and saying their bit on what is needed to build out that source of truth. We want to leverage the current OSDU Forum resources to establish that source of truth within mining. And also we want to build a community that is able to give back as well. So building and donating resources to the global OSDU ecosystem so that other people can, other institutions and people can benefit from the collaborative nature of the OSDU Forum. Next slide, please. So this is an overview of how the OSDU Forum ecosystem looks like. I apologize that the diagram might not be very visible, but essentially if you go to the OSDU Forum website, you would see that at the very top, we have the Open Group Legal and Operating Framework, OSDU Focal Points, and the OMC, which is the OSDU Management Committee. But additionally, connecting to that, we have 4 pillars, which is the Project Management Committee, the capability groups, which are very much centered around the platform, the data platform, and data domain management systems that have been built out to help standardize different data types, such as seismic data, seismic DDMSs, the wellbore, and the wellbore delivery. You have consumption zones, which are very much related to moving data from the data repository to one of to software such as Esri, so the GCZ, the Geospatial Consumption Zone, for example, connects OSDU to Esri, essentially leveraging the ability to move data across the 2 different platforms. And additionally, there's working groups where individuals come together to collaborate on building data definitions, modeling, and standards. So data definitions and modeling working groups exist for different types of data. So if you look over there, the ones that I've highlighted in red represent what we're using within the mining industry. So high dependence, the mining special interest group has a high dependency on those. So like the rock and fluid sampling groups, as well as the mining, drilling and sampling, the mining geophysics working groups as well. And then at the very end there, we have the special interest group within the OSDU Forum, which at the moment is the mining special interest group. And the main goal of the mining special interest group is to ensure that people within the mining community that are members of the OSDU Forum can come together and establish strategies on how to improve standards, workflows, processes, and build out use cases for OSDU and data that's going into OSDU. And also just to plan things like these virtual events whereby different people who are interested in knowing about the OSDU Forum can come and hear a little bit more about it as well. Next slide, please. So at a high level, this slide kind of summarizes what we're doing in the mining domain, in the mining special interest group. So the mining special interest group was established in January of 2024. And the main goal of the group, as mentioned, was to build out the mining roadmap and activities, to build out an OSD strategy, and to do some outreaches and webinars that essentially introduces OSDU to the rest of the mining community, and also shares learnings and how other mining companies can come on board, and how they would be able to benefit from a centralized cloud-based data repository such as OSDU, and how they will be able to collaborate with BHP, but also other companies that have joined the OSDU Forum, such as Anglo Gold and IMDEX, which are mining specific mining company, and another one is a mining vendor as well. Additionally, we wanted, because we've been working on OSDU for some time now, and we've built out so many schemas and standards, we're building interoperability between OSDU and some of our softwares within BHP. We wanted to establish working groups whereby we are no longer doing this work in a silo, but we're collaborating with our new partners such as IMDEX, such as Anglo Gold, and the Global Mining Guidelines that have recently joined the OSDU Forum. So we built out 2 working groups, the mining, drilling and sampling working group, and the mining geophysics working group. And these were just launched earlier this year, and we meet monthly on each of these working groups. The goal of the mining, drilling and sampling working group is to build detailed definitions for the drilling and sampling data families, and also to build out use cases, workflows, and outline what the terminology and standards look like for drilling and sampling data within OSDU, and within mining for OSDU, and how we can take it a step further and make sure that most, if not all, mining related data types collected down a drill hole or on a subsurface are incorporated within OSDU. And then the mining geophysics working group is basically related, it covers everything related to airborne and ground geophysics. building schemas and standards for geophysical data sets, and ensuring that those schemas are donated back into the forum so that other companies that join the OSDU forum do not have to start from the ground. But we are essentially leveraging what's been built and updating those schemas based off of input from our subject matter experts in the community. So these two groups have been established and we'll be meeting monthly. These meetings are on the OSDU aggregated calendar if people are interested in dropping in to see what we've done so far. So we've done a lot of work on geophysics, and the geophysics schemas have been donated to the OSDU forum. So there's someone on the GitLab. If you want more information, please let me know, and I'm happy to share that. And I'm working on packaging some of the drilling and sampling schemas that we've built out, and we will be building out a GitLab page for that as well and donating it. And those schemas will be discussed in those working group sessions. And the idea is to look at the schemas and see how we can start improving them. And one other thing that we've been working on that I'm really excited about is interoperability that I've mentioned before. So the capability groups, such as the consumption zones, are very much related to how can we move data from the OSDU data platform to other data platforms within the company. So the last quarter, we worked on extending the extensibility of the geospatial consumption zone and enabling key mining geoscience data types to flow across from OSDU into Esri. So we've done configurations of collar, survey, and samples, as well as some line data such as structural faults, as well as geological maps. I think we tried to do configurations for rasters, but it didn't work out very well. But that just shows that there's some room for improvement. So we're working on improving the platform and making sure that we can have grid data go across as well, so our geoscientists can essentially connect to the OSDU data platform and grab data in OSDU directly and plot it in Esri and start using it to make decisions. So that's kind of what the mining data domain has been doing within OSDU. Next slide, please. I think this next slide just goes a bit more in detail on the mining special interest group. So as mentioned, it was established in January of 2024. I am the current lead of the Mining Special Interest Group alongside Milan from Build AI and the Basis from the Catalyst Data Management and Dale Harris from Anglo Gold. There's also a steering committee, Chris Hoff, Nicole Pham, Jess Cosman, Liv Carroll, and Steve Randall from IMDEC. So essentially, these are just a few people listed. There's a lot more other people who are participating in the Mining Special Interest Group. But yeah, essentially the goal is we meet up every couple of weeks on the OSDU meetings that are kind of scheduled for the rest of the year, and we discuss the special interest group a bit more in detail and see where we can improve the work that we've done so far and how we can build an outreach to the rest of the community. So most of our communication happens on Slack. So if you go to hashtag SIG mining, you'd see some of the conversations that are ongoing in the OSDU Slack. We meet bi-weekly on Wednesdays at 7 a.m. But some of the meeting cadences have actually been changed. So we have a 7 a.m. Eastern time meeting schedule, and then we have a separate week. It's a 6 p.m. Eastern time Wednesday schedule to cover for other time zones so that people in different parts of the world can hop into the calls and join the conversation. Next slide, please. Yeah, and we've done a significant amount of work within the mining SIG alone. We've hosted a webinar earlier last year that kind of covers OSDU and why the mining sector is considering joining the OSDU forum and working with the OSDU forum participants as mentioned. So if you get a copy of the slide deck, you'll be able to see the previous webinar that we hosted. And some of the presentations that we gave are on the OSDU website or GitLab that you'll be able to get access to. Additionally, last year we had a PDAC event. We had an OSDU event at the PDAC conference, which is the Prospectors and Developers Association of Canada. It's one of the biggest mining conferences in the world. About 40,000 people come to that conference in March of every year. There's one coming up this year, March of 2025. But essentially, this where we started the conversation of OSDU in the mining industry. We started that conversation in March of 2024, and that conversation continues this year as well. So if you're ever at the conference at PDAC, look out for a PDAC OSDU event. So we use conferences as a way to connect with the global mining communities and talk to people and find out what they're looking for when it comes to a data platform. What are their many data challenges within their institutions, and if they see OSDU being a key driver in solving those challenges. And then finally, I contributed a white paper to the OSDU Forum. It's essentially for people who don't know what the OSDU Forum is and why mining is a part of the OSDU Forum. So you'll see some images from the slide deck in that white paper, highlighting why a centralized cloud-based data repository is important. Next slide. So I had put together a mining use case just for people who are interested in seeing how mining is using OSDU and what that looks like. So I've been working on the drilling and sampling data types within BHP for OSDU, and ideally, the main goal is to see how we can standardize data collected on the surface and data collected down a drill hole within mining. And most of this data set is collected for a particular exploration project. And that project would have its project name, prospect name, and project activity. And that will kind of define what that project is meant to do, whether that's a drilling campaign or a sampling campaign or a prospectivity project as well. So within OSDU, what we're doing is for OSDU data standardization, what we're doing is we're chopping it down by building out what does the standard for project, prospect, and project activity look like, and what are the standards for a caller in a drill hole survey. And when you're looking at a drill hole survey, we collect drill holes at a particular location with a particular trajectory or an incline. And then along that drill hole, samples are collected. And there are different analysis types for those collected from those particular samples. And each of those analysis types have important data, standards, and metadata associated with them. And ideally, what we've been doing is building out standards for each of the different sample analysis types for samples collected down a drill hole. For example, analysis types such as geotech logging, geochemical analysis, geochronological analysis, mineral chemistry. So each of these data types that are collected on a sample are reviewed and standardized for OSDU, and essentially that is all connected back to the project and the project activity as well. There's also additional information that is captured, such as reference information and lookups, all kind of linked together as multiple schemas connected together to build out standards for drilling and sampling in OSDU. So that's one key use case that we've recently just completed for drilling and sampling, and we'll be discussing a bit more in detail in the drilling and sampling working groups within the OSDU forum. Next slide, please. So if you were to look at the OSDU forum itself, the energy industry has been very much interested in wellbore, of course, because that's kind of how the energy industry does exploration. So everything, data collected on a well, the geocontext associated with the well, the organization, the quality of that data, and other important metadata collected down a well, including reference data relationships. So we've looked at what has been delivered by the OSDU forum, and the idea was we don't want to reinvent the wheel. How do we take the standard that's been created by the forum within the energy sector and translate it into mining data standards. And the next slide will show how we've done that. So in the left there, you see that downhole survey and sampling schematic that I had in the previous slide, where we're collecting data down a drill hole, and we've created equivalents of our drill hole collar to the well bore, because that's they're pretty equivalent in that way. So you can see what's included in our current drill hole schema is that we've made a drill hole schema from the well bore schema and made minor adjustments to that schema, obviously. And then we've built out mechanisms to capture data quality using the technical assurance implementation that has been built out within the energy sector and donated to the OSDU Forum. So we've basically built out translations of that for how does technical assurance or data quality look like for a drill hole collar and a drill hole survey, and all the different analysis created from that as well. And additionally, we're looking at the geocontext and scaling of our exploration project. So if you're looking at a project that kind of separated by place, concept, camps, and maybe a target, how does the geocontext connect back to the well bore or the drill hole, and how does that link to the data quality as well as the drill hole survey and drill hole collar? And then additional steps are, how do these connect to the sample that's been collected along the drill hole, and the analysis types collected along that drill hole as well. So we're very much leveraging what's been created within the OSDU Forum, but also making sure that we're not compromising any data standards and data management requirements for the mining and community either. So this is an ongoing task that will obviously have improvements over time, with more people coming in and more subject matter experts helping the team out with ensuring that we're capturing the right information and we can create that source of truth for mining and exploration. Next slide, please. And then finally, just to go back to that slide that Dennis had earlier, is the beauty of the OSDU Forum community is collaboration. And we love the fact that there is so many different institutions, over 200 members within the OSDU community, ranging from energy operators and renewable energy operators to cloud service providers and independent software vendors and system integrators and academics, all working together to ensure that we would have a centralized data platform. And now with mining joining the OSDU Forum, so having AngloGold and BHP into the forum means we get to extend the different data types that are covered by the OSDU Forum, and that information is standardized as well. The main goal is always to ensure that our data is centralized so we can make better decisions when it comes to exploration and targeting and finding new deposits that will feed our growing global needs as well. And also that centralized data platform ensures that we are able to leverage the power of AI and analytics very well. When your data is all in one location, it's all standardized, you have more trust in your data, which means you have more time to build out workflows and AI and machine learning workflows. You have more time to do experiments as well and see how data responds when you run it through one algorithm versus another. And also the beauty of OSDU being able to capture documentation means we can better leverage things like Gen AI to make decisions and get information out of a single data repository that has all data kind of centralized. So I'm very grateful to all the different community members within the OSDU and their contribution to the platform and ensuring that it continues to grow over time. And we're very excited as well to be members of the OSDU Forum as mining operators. Thank you very much. Is the next slide? I think that's my last slide. Yeah. So yeah, I'd like to thank Dennis and some of all the people within the mining special interest group that have been helping with growing the group over time. I'd like to thank Rachel from Shell for that beautiful slide showing the 200 plus members of the OSDU Forum, Milan, who is a co-lead on the OSDU Mining Special Interest Group. Yeah, thank you very much. Dennis, do you have anything to
No,
add?
Steve,
Thank you,
back to
Francisca.
you.
Thank you, Francisca. Thank you, Dennis. Dennis, for the overview of the forum, of course, and really nice, comprehensive description of what the mining companies are doing, Francisca, in the OSDU Forum. So, and it's great to see a decision that you mentioned from BHP to not do some of this work in silos anymore, but to partner within the community. So that's what it's all about, really. So we are actually out of time, but I do have a question that's coming out that I do want to ask you, and that is that clearly the OSDU data platform goes a long way to giving the mining companies what they need as a data platform. But what are the benefit? And obviously, there's work to be done on the mining specifics. But what are the broader benefits to the mining community beyond the platform itself?
I think collaboration, that's probably the main benefit. It's the ability to have different institutions come together and talk about data and data standardization. There's so many organizations that exist within mining that do that, but in silos, all in silos. And when you start talking about OSDU and the potential to have institutions sitting in the US and Australia and Europe kind of sitting together and saying, let's talk about geochemistry and how can we standardize geochemistry. It is a big task. Whenever I bring up this, the problem of standardizing geochem data, everybody's like, oh, that's a big task. So-and-so started it and dropped it, but it is possible. And we're hoping that people can lend their time and just volunteer their expertise towards building that collaboration and ensuring that future geoscientists come into the field itself, knowing that what standards have been accepted across the board and not have to kind of read different material to understand one data type. So
yeah, that's wonderful. And obviously we look forward to the success and hearing more over time. One question that's just come in, so I'll put it to you. Does the collaboration need to move the data, or do the users of this when you're done, obviously, do you need to move the data, or can it happen in place? For example, does each organization have one data platform implementation, or do they need to keep moving the data?
ideally, they would have one data platform in place within their institution, and then migrate data from the different silos that it's sitting in into one location.
Right.
And ideally, institutions would want to have one data platform that they can, get their data from. That's the point of the repository. Yeah.
Yes,
Absolutely.
the data always remains the ownership of who possesses that data, who created that data. The beauty of the OSDU platform, whether it's mining or subsurface or new energy, is that it abstracts that data from the infrastructure to process the data. And so therefore, we have working groups called external data sources that work exactly on that, time latency concerns, things of that nature. But the bottom line is the data is abstracted, the platform is harmonized. So if Francisca has a platform and I have a platform, we can reach out to a common data set and pull that into each of our platforms, and then we can work collaboratively on that data set, enhancing it.
Yeah, I'll also add that OSDU can be used as a system of reference and a system of record as well. So if you have pre-competitive data that you don't want to move into your repository, you could use OSDU to reference to that data set. So that enables your team to be able to know what resources are available out there, all kind of captured within the OSDU forum. environment. So you don't always have to move your data. Basically, you can reference to it. Yeah.
No, that's really great to hear, and it's so good to see the mining part of the industry moving or building on the work that's already been done, because there's some really great work being done there. And as Dennis said, it started with pure subsurface data in the oil and gas industry, and it's obviously embracing other things and mining the latest one. And I hope there are other uses for it as we build a great data platform across for use across many industries. So I appreciate your all your work in the group, Francisca, and championing it. And as I say, look forward to more in the future, hearing more. So thank you for joining us today, Dennis and Francisca.